Ambassador Peter Thompson, President of the UN General Assembly, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, Mr. Michael Mueller, Director General of the UN Office at Geneva, ladies and gentlemen, friends, as a new year begins, everything takes on a new look. It gives me great pleasure to visit the United Nations office at Geneva and discuss with all of you the building of a community of shared future for mankind, which is the call of our time. I just attended the World Economic Forum annual meeting. In Davos, many speakers pointed out in their speeches that today's world is full of uncertainties. People long for a bright future, but are also bewildered about what will come. What has happened to the world, and how should we respond? The whole world is reflecting on this question, and it is also very much on my mind. I believe to answer this question, we need to first get clear about a fundamental issue. Where did we come from? Where are we now? And where are we going? Over the past century and more, mankind has gone through bloody hot wars and the chilling Cold War. But mankind has also achieved remarkable development and huge progress. In the first half of last century, mankind suffered the scourges of 2 world wars. And the people yearned most for the end of war and the advent of peace. In the 1950s and 60s, people in colonies awakened and fought to shake off shackles and achieve independence. Since the end of the Cold War, people have a shared aspiration, and that is to expand cooperation and promote common development. For peace and development, this has been the aspiration held dear by mankind over the past century. However, the goal to achieve peace and development is far from being met. We need to respond to the people's call, take up the baton of history, and forge ahead on the marathon track toward peace and development. Mankind is now in an era of major development as well as profound transformation and change. The trend toward multipolarity and economic globalization is surging. IT application in social development and cultural diversity are making continued progress. A new round of scientific and industrial revolution is in the making. Interconnection and interdependence between countries are crucial for human survival. The forces for peace far outweigh factors causing war. And the trend of our times toward peace, development, cooperation, and win-win outcomes has gained stronger momentum. On the other hand, mankind is also in an era of numerous challenges and increasing risks. Global growth is sluggish, The impacts of the financial crisis lingers on, and the development gap is widening. Armed conflicts occur from time to time. Cold War mentality and power politics still exist. And non-conventional security threats, particularly terrorism, refugee crisis, major communicable diseases, and climate change are spreading. There is only one Earth in the universe, and we, mankind, have only one homeland. Stephen Hawking has talked about the idea of a parallel universe, hoping to find another place in the universe where mankind could live. Well, we do not know when this wish will come true. So, until today, Earth is still the only home to mankind. So to care for and cherish the Earth is the only option for all of us. There is a Latin motto inscribed in the dome of the Federal Palace of Switzerland which says, "One for all and all for one." We should not only think about our own generation, but also take responsibility for future ones. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, to pass on the torch of peace from generation to generation, sustain development, and make civilization flourish. This is what people of all countries long for. It is also the responsibility that statesmen of our generation ought to shoulder. And China's proposition is build a community of shared future for mankind and achieve shared and win-win development. Vision guides action, and direction determines the future. As modern history shows, to establish a fair and equitable international order is the goal mankind has always striven for. From the principles of equality and sovereignty established in the Peace of Westphalia over 360 years ago, to international humanitarianism affirmed in the Geneva Convention 150 plus years ago. From the 4 purposes and 7 principles enshrined in the UN Charter more than 70 years ago, to the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence championed by the Bandung Conference over 60 years ago. Many principles have emerged in the evolution of international relations and have become widely accepted. These principles should guide us in building a community of shared future for mankind. Sovereign equality is the most important norm governing state-to-state relations over the past centuries. It is the cardinal principle observed by the United Nations and all other international organizations. The essence of sovereign equality is that the sovereignty and dignity of all countries, whether big or small, strong or weak, rich or poor, must be respected. Their internal affairs allow no interference, and they have the right to independently choose their social system and development path. In organizations such as the United Nations, World Trade Organization, World Health Organization, World Intellectual Property Organization, World Meteorological Organization, International Telecommunication Union, Universal Postal Union, International Organization for Migration, and International Labor Organization. Countries have an equal voice in decision-making, constituting an important force for improving global governance. In the new era, we should uphold sovereign equality and work for equality in rights, opportunity, and rules for all countries. Geneva witnessed the adoption of the final declaration on the problem of restoring peace in Indochina, the first summit meeting for reconciliation between the two blocs during the Cold War. And it has also witnessed the dialogue and negotiations on hotspot issues like the Iranian nuclear issue and the Syrian issue. What we have learned from both past and present is that dialogue and consultation is an effective way to bridge differences, and political negotiation is the fundamental solution to end conflicts. When we have sincere wish, goodwill, and political wisdom, no conflict is too big to settle, and no ice is too thick to break. As an ancient Chinese philosopher said, law is the very foundation of governance. Here in Geneva, countries, on the basis of the UN Charter, concluded a number of international conventions and legal documents on political security, trade, development, social issues, human rights, science and technology, health, labor, intellectual property, culture, and sports. Well, the relevance of law lies in its enforcement. It is thus incumbent on all countries to uphold the authority of the international rule of law, exercise their rights in accordance with law, and fulfill their obligations in good faith. But the relevance of law also lies in fairness and justice. All countries and international judicial institutions should ensure equal and uniform application of international law and should reject double standards and the practice of applying international law in a selective way, thus ensuring genuine equality and justice in the world. The ocean is vast because it meets all rivers. Openness and inclusiveness have made Geneva a center of multilateral diplomacy. We should advance democracy in international relations and reject dominance by just one or several countries. All countries should jointly shape the future of the world and jointly write international rules and jointly manage global affairs so as to ensure that development outcomes are shared by all. In 1862, Henry Dunant, in his book A Memory of Solferino, pondered the question of whether it is possible to set up humanitarian organizations and whether it is possible to conclude humanitarian conventions. Well, the answer came 1 year later with the founding of the International Committee of the Red Cross. Over the past 1.5 centuries, the Red Cross has become a symbol and a banner. In the face of frequent humanitarian crises, we should champion the spirit of humanity, compassion, and dedication, and give love and hope to the innocent people caught in dire situations. We should uphold the basic principles of neutrality, impartiality, and independence, refrain from politicizing humanitarian issues, and ensure non-militarization of humanitarian assistance. Mr. Secretary General, President of the General Assembly, Mr. Director General, ladies and gentlemen, friends, great visions can be realized only through actions. Actions hold the key to building a community of shared future for mankind. To achieve this goal, the international community should promote partnership, security, growth, inter-civilization exchanges, and the building of a sound ecosystem. We should stay committed to building a world of lasting peace through dialogue and consultation. When countries enjoy peace, so will the world. When countries fight, the world suffers. From the Peloponnesian War in the 5th century BC to the 2 world wars and the Cold War that lasted more than 4 decades, we have drawn painful and profound lessons. Well, history, if not forgotten, can serve as a guide for the future. By establishing the United Nations, those before us won more than 70 years of relative peace for the world. What we need to do is to improve the mechanisms and means to more effectively resolve disputes, reduce tension, and put an end to wars and conflicts. The Swiss writer and Nobel laureate Hermann Hesse stressed the importance of serving not war and destruction, but peace and reconciliation. Countries should foster partnerships based on dialogue, non-confrontation, and non-alliance. Major powers should respect each other's core interests and major concerns, keep their differences under control, and build a new model of relations featuring non-conflict, non-confrontation, mutual respect, and win-win cooperation. As long as we maintain communication and treat each other with sincerity, the Thucydides trap can be avoided. Big countries should treat smaller countries as equals, instead of acting as a hegemon, imposing their will on others. No country should open the Pandora's box by willfully waging wars or undermining the international rule of law. When nuclear weapons the sword of Damocles that hands over mankind, should be completely prohibited and thoroughly destroyed over time to make the world free of nuclear weapons. Guided by the principle of peace, sovereignty, inclusiveness, and shared governance, we should turn the deep sea, the polar regions, the outer space, and the internet into new frontiers for cooperation, rather than a wrestling ground for competition.
We should build a world of common prosperity, build a world of common security for all through joint efforts. No country in the world can enjoy absolute security. A country cannot have security while others are in turmoil, as threats facing other countries may haunt itself also. When neighbors are in trouble, instead of tightening his own fences, one should extend a helping hand to them. As the saying goes, united we stand, divided we fall. All countries should pursue common, comprehensive, cooperative, and sustainable security. Terrorist attacks that have occurred in Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East in recent years once again demonstrate that terrorism is the common enemy of mankind. Fighting terrorism is the shared responsibility of all countries. In fighting terror, we should not just treat the symptoms, but also remove its root causes. We should enhance coordination and build a global united front against terrorism so as to create an umbrella of security for people around the world. The number of refugees has hit a record high since the end of the Second World War. While tackling the crisis, we should also get to its roots. Why would anyone want to be displaced if they have a home to return to? UNHCR and the International Organization for Migration should act as the coordinator to mobilize the whole world to respond effectively to the refugee crisis. China has decided to provide an additional 200 million yuan of humanitarian assistance for refugees and the displaced of Syria. As terrorism and the refugee crisis are closely linked to geopolitical conflicts, resolving conflicts provides the fundamental solution to such problems. Parties directly involved should return to the negotiating table, and other parties should work to facilitate talks for peace. And we should all respect the role the UN plays as the main channel for mediation. Pandemic diseases such as bird flu, Ebola, and Zika have sounded the alarm for international health security. The WHO should play a leadership role in strengthening epidemic monitoring and sharing of information, practices, and technologies. The international community should step up support and assistance for public health in African countries and other developing countries. We should build a world of common prosperity through win-win cooperation. Development is the top priority for all countries. Instead of beggaring thy neighbor, countries should stick together like passengers in the same boat. All countries, the main economies in particular, should strengthen macro-policy coordination, pursue both current and long-term interests, and focus on resolving deep-seated problems. We should seize the historic opportunity presented by the new round of scientific and technological revolution and industrial transformation, shift growth models, drive growth through innovation, and further unleash social productivity and creativity. We should uphold WTO rules, support an open, transparent, inclusive, and non-discriminatory multilateral trading regime, and build a noble world economy. Trade protectionism and self-isolation will benefit no one. Economic globalization, a surging historical trend, has greatly facilitated trade, investment, flow of people, and technological advances. Since the turn of the century, under the auspices of the UN and riding on the waves of economic globalization, the international community has set the MDGs and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Thanks to these initiatives, 1.1 billion people have been lifted out of poverty. 1.9 billion people now have access to safe drinking water. 3.5 billion people have gained access to the internet. And the goal has been set to eradicate extreme poverty by 2030. All this demonstrates that economic globalization is moving in the right direction. Of course, challenges such as development disparity, governance dilemma, digital divide, and equity deficit still exist. But they are growing pains. We should face these problems and take actions to tackle them. As we Chinese like to say, one should not stop eating for fear of getting choked. We should draw inspiration from history. Historians told us long ago that rapid economic development makes social reform necessary. But people tend to support the former while rejecting the latter. Instead of watching in hesitation, we should move forward against all odds. Answers can also be found in reality. The 2008 international financial crisis teaches us that we should strengthen coordination and improve governance so as to ensure sound growth of economic globalization and make it open, inclusive, balanced, and beneficial to all. We should both make the pie bigger and also share it fairly to ensure justice and equity. Last September, the G20 summit in Hangzhou focused on global economic governance and other major issues. It adopted the blueprint on innovative growth and for the first time put development in global macro policy framework and formulated an action plan in this regard. We should build an open and inclusive world through exchanges and mutual learning. The ancient Chinese say that delicious soup is made by combining different ingredients. Diversity of human civilizations not only defines our world, but also drives progress of mankind. There are more than 200 countries and regions, over 2,500 ethnic groups, and multiple religions in our world. Different histories, national conditions, ethnic groups, and customs give birth to different civilizations and make the world more colorful. There is no such thing as a superior or inferior civilization, and civilizations are different only in identity and location. Diversity of civilizations should not be a source of global conflict. Rather, it should be an engine driving the advance of human civilizations. Every civilization with its own appeal and root is a human treasure. Different civilizations should draw on each other to achieve common progress. We should make exchanges among civilizations a source of inspiration for advancing human society and a bond that keeps the world in peace. We should make our world clean and beautiful by pursuing green and low-carbon growth. Man coexists with nature, which means that any harm to nature will eventually come back to haunt man. We hardly notice natural resources such as air, water, soil, and blue sky when we have them, but we won't be able to survive without them. Industrialization has created material wealth never seen before, but it has also inflicted irreparable damage to the environment. We must not exhaust all the resources passed on by previous generations and leaving nothing to our children, or pursue development in a destructive way. Clear waters and green mountains are just as good as mountains of gold and silver. We must maintain harmony between man and nature and pursue sustainable development. We should pursue green, low-carbon, circular, and a sustainable way of life and production, advance the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development in a balanced manner, and explore a model of sound development that ensures growth, better lives, and a good environment. The Paris Agreement is a milestone in the history of climate governance. We must ensure this endeavor is not derailed. All parties should work together to implement the Paris Agreement. China will continue to take steps to tackle climate change and fully honor its obligations. The Swiss Army knife embodies Swiss craftsmanship. When I first got one, I was deeply amazed by its rich functions. I cannot help but think how wonderful it would be if an exquisite Swiss Army knife could be made for our world. Whenever there is a problem, we just fix it with one of the tools on the knife. I believe that with the unremitting efforts of the international community, we can make such a knife. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, for us Chinese, China will do well only when the world does well, and vice versa. Many people are quite interested in what policies China will pursue, and we have also heard various views. So here I wish to give you an explicit answer. First, China remains unchanged in its commitment to uphold world peace. Amity with neighbors, harmony without uniformity, and peace are values cherished in the Chinese culture. The Art of War, a Chinese classic, begins with the following observation. The art of war is of vital importance to the state. It is a matter of life and death, a road to either survival or ruin. Hence, it demands careful study. What it means is that every effort should be made to prevent a war, and a great caution must be exercised when it comes to fighting a war. For several millennia, peace has been in the blood of us Chinese and a part of our DNA. Several centuries ago, China was strong, and its GDP accounted for 30% of the global total. But even then, China was never engaged in aggression or expansion. In the over 100 years after the 1840 Opium War, China suffered immensely from aggression, wars, and chaos. Confucius said, "Do not do to others what you do not want others to do to you." We Chinese firmly believe that peace and stability is the only way to development and prosperity. China has grown from a poor and a weak country to the world's second largest economy, not through military expansion or colonial plunder, but through the hard work of its people and our efforts to uphold peace. China will never waver in its pursuit of peaceful development. No matter how strong its economy grows, China will never seek hegemony, expansion, or sphere of influence. History has borne this out and will continue to do so. Second, China remains unchanged in its commitment to pursue common development. An old Chinese saying goes, "When you reap fruits, you should not forget the tree. When you drink water, you should not forget its source." China's development has been possible because of the world, and China has also contributed to the world's development. We will continue to pursue a win-win strategy of opening up, share our development opportunities with other countries, and welcome them aboard the express train of China's development. Between 1950 and 2016, China provided foreign countries with over 400 billion yuan of aid. And we will continue to increase assistance to others as our ability permits. Since the outbreak of the international financial crisis, China has contributed to over 30% of global growth each year on average. In the coming 5 years, China will import $8 trillion of goods, attract $600 billion of foreign investment, make $750 billion of outbound investment, and Chinese tourists will make 700 million outbound visits. All this will bring more development opportunities to other countries. China will continue to pursue a path of development in keeping with its national conditions. We always put people's rights and interests above everything else, and we have worked hard to advance and uphold human rights. China has met the basic living needs of its 1.3 billion plus people and lifted over 700 million people out of poverty, which is a significant contribution to the global cause of human rights. The Belt and Road Initiative I put forward aims to achieve win-win and shared development. Over 100 countries and international organizations have supported the initiative, and a large number of early harvest projects have been launched. China supports the successful operation of the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank and other new multilateral financial institutions in order to provide more public goods to the international community. Third, China remains unchanged in its commitment to foster partnerships. China pursues an independent foreign policy of peace and is ready to enhance friendship and cooperation with all other countries on the basis of the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence. China is the first country to make partnership building a principle guiding state-to-state relations. It has formed partnerships of various forms with over 90 countries and regional organizations. And we will build a circle of friends across the whole world. China will endeavor to put in place a framework of relations with major powers featuring general stability and balanced growth. We will strive to build a new model of major country relations with the United States, a comprehensive strategic partnership of coordination with Russia, partnership for peace, growth, reform, and among different civilizations with Europe, and a partnership of unity and cooperation with BRICS countries. China will continue to uphold justice and friendship and pursue shared interests. And we will boost pragmatic cooperation with other developing countries to achieve common development. We will further enhance mutually beneficial cooperation with our neighbors under the principle of amity, sincerity, mutual benefit, and inclusiveness. We will pursue common development with African countries in a spirit of sincerity, result-oriented, affinity, and good faith. And we will elevate our comprehensive cooperative partnership with Latin America to a higher level. Fourth, China remains unchanged in its commitment to multilateralism. Multilateralism is an effective way to preserve peace and promote development. For decades, the United Nations and other international institutions have made a universally recognized contribution to maintaining global peace and sustaining development. China is a founding member of the United Nations, and it is also the first country to put its signature on the UN Charter. China will firmly uphold the international system with the UN as its core. The basic norms governing international relations embodied in the purposes and principles of the UN Charter, the authority and the stature of the UN, and also the core role played by the UN in international affairs. The China UN Peace and Development Fund has been officially inaugurated. We will make funds available to peace and development-oriented programs proposed by the UN and its agencies in Geneva on a priority basis. China's support for multilateralism will increase as the country continues to develop itself. Mr. President of the General Assembly, Mr. Secretary General, Mr. Director General, ladies and gentlemen, friends, Geneva invokes a special memory to us Chinese.
1954年
In 1954,
周恩来总理
Premier Zhou Enlai led a Chinese delegation to the Geneva Conference
同苏联
and worked
美国
with the Soviet
英国
Union, the United
法国
States,
等
the United
共同
Kingdom,
讨
and
论
France to
政治
seek
解决
political
朝鲜问
settlement
题
of the Korean
和
issue
印度支那
and
停
a
战问题
ceasefire in Indochina.
展现和平精
This
神
involvement demonstrated
为世界
China's
和平
desire
贡
for
献了
peace
中
and
国智慧。
contributed Chinese wisdom to world peace.
1971年
Since 1971,
中国恢复在
when
联合
China
国的合
gained
法
its
席
lawful
位
seat in the UN
重返
and
日内
began
瓦
to
国际
return
机
to
构后
international agencies in Geneva,
逐步参与
China
财
has
经
gradually involved
经贸
itself in
人权
disarmament,
社会等各
trade,
领域事务
development, human rights, and social
为
issues,
重大问题解决和
providing
重要规
Chinese
则制定
solution to major issues
提供
and
了
the
中国方
making
案
of important rules.
近年来
In recent years,
中国积极
China has
参与
taken
伊
an
朗
active
和
part in dialogues
叙利亚
and
等热点
negotiations
问
on
题
the
的对
Iranian
话和
nuclear
谈
issue,
判
the Syrian issue, and
为
other
推动
hotspot
政治
issues,
解决
making
做
Chinese
出了中国贡
contribution
献
to their political settlement.
中国先后
By
成功向
presenting Chinese
国家
splendor
委
to the
会
world, China
申办
applied
夏
to
季
the
和冬季
International Olympic
两
Committee
届
to
奥
host
运会
both the Summer
和
and the
残
Winter
奥会
Olympic and Paralympic Games and won the
中国
bids.
10多项
And we gained
世界自然
endorsement
遗
from
产
the International Union for
和文化
Conservation of Nature for
自然
over a
双重
dozen
遗产申请
applications for World Natural
得到
Heritage
世界
Sites,
自然保
as
护
well
联
as
盟
World
支持
Cultural and Natural
呈
Heritage
现了中国
Sites.
精彩。女士们、先生
Ladies
们、
and gentlemen,
朋友们，
friends,
中国古人说，
the ancient Chinese believed
善
that
学者尽其理，
one should be good at
善
finding
行
the
者
laws
究
of
其
things
难。
and solving problems.
构建人类 命
Building a
运共同
community
体
of
是
shared
一个美
future
好的目
is an
标，
exciting goal,
也是
and
一
it
个需要
requires
一代
efforts
又
from
一代人接
generation
力跑才能
after
实现的目
generation.
标。中国愿同广大成
China
员
is
国
ready to work with all the
国际
other
组织和
UN
机
member
构一
states
道
as well as international organizations and
共同
agencies
推进
to advance
构建
the great cause
人类命
of
运
building
共
a
同体的
community of shared
伟
future
大进程。
for mankind.
1月28日，
On the 28th of
是
January,
中国人民
we
将迎
Chinese
来
will celebrate
农历
the Chinese
丁酉
New
新
Year,
年，也就是
the
鸡
year
年春节。
of the rooster.
鸡年啊，寓意光明
The
和吉
rooster
祥。
symbolizes bright prospects and
金
auspiciousness.
鸡一唱
As the
千门
Chinese saying
晓
goes, the crow of the golden rooster
祝大家
heralds a great day for all.
新春快
With
乐
that, I wish you all the very best
万事如意。
and a very happy
谢谢
Chinese
大
New
家。
Year. Thank you.